Welcome back to the divisional round episode. Hey, no worries about wild card weekend. We got to just sit there, relax, enjoy the Dallas Cowboys get eliminated, enjoy the Rams get eliminated, enjoy the Eagles get eliminated. So it was a hell of a weekend for me. What about yourself, Akash?
It was pretty good, man. We got most of our picks right. I think the Cowboys Packers game really screwed some of our picks because
Yeah.
we both talked about Tampa Bay potentially coming, but it's Green Bay instead. But outside of that,
Mm-hmm.
it was weird to see all the NFC contenders that we thought, kind of coming into this season that would challenge the 49ers all not get knocked out week one of the playoffs.
Yeah. Or like I didn't see them as like challenging the 49ers, but a lot of
True.
people saw the Seahawks challenging the 49ers. And I was like, yo, like they're not even in it either. So it's I guess the Lions are kind of, up and coming, and then Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield, like good story. I think I saw quarterbacks to win playoff games for multiple teams was like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Baker Mayfield himself, and another player I'm forgetting.
Jared
Probably I
Goff
would
now.
assume Jared Goff. I would assume Kurt Warner as well. Oh, I think it was yeah. So Baker Mayfield being in that list as well as Jared Goff is kind of ironic. So, but let's go ahead and get into it. 49ers versus the Packers. What we're going to do is we're going to talk 49ers defense versus 49ers or Packers offense, the X factor for the 49ers defense. Then we're going to flip it on the other side of the ball. 49ers offense versus Packers defense, X factor for the 49ers on that offense. And then we're going to make our game pick, which, you know, we'll find it out to the end. We'll find out to the end. And promise won't be any homer pick involved. So Akash, tell me about 49ers defense versus Packers offense.
Let's start with the Packers offense. And this is a unit that's been playing, since the midway point of the season. They've been playing like a top five unit. Jordan Love has really come on, and is playing, I think pretty close to flawless ball. I think in the last like 8 or 9 weeks, he's got about 21 touchdowns. I think he's got one interception. You look at his PFF grades, he's right up there with Brock Purdy among the top passers in the NFL. And generally, what I'll try to do is try to find a weakness or a hole that, the 49ers can exploit on either side of the ball. And you start with the Packers offense. Their offensive line is good. They're a good pass blocking line. Aaron Jones was healthy this past week. He ran for over 100 yards. Their receivers, which, aren't necessarily household names, but
Mm-hmm.
they've got a lot of them, and they're kind of speedy, shifty guys. Jordan Love just hasn't turned over the ball. He's played well under pressure. If you blitz him, he's played well. This offense has been humming, and this past week they took advantage of a Cowboys defense that was undersized ever since they lost Leighton Vander Esch. They started playing more nickel and dime packages, and they started using 14 Marquez Bell as kind of that third linebacker. And the Packers took advantage of that. They just ran the ball, ran the ball, ran the ball, ran the ball, and that just ended up with open receivers in the play action passing game. Packers won't necessarily be able to do that against the 49ers, hopefully, just because the 49ers should be healthy on defense. They've been a so-so run defense at different parts of the season, but I think, with fresh legs coming off of a bye, they should be able to slow down this Packers unit some. I do think the Packers are going to be able to move the ball. I think they're going to put up a lot of yards. I think this is really going to come down to, can the 49ers force a couple crucial stops here and there? Can they maybe force a turnover, which Jordan Love hasn't necessarily done? Can they, get some stops in the red zone, maybe turn some touchdowns into field goals, and just play complementary ball? I don't think this is a game where the 49ers are come out and they're going to shut down this Packers offense. I do think they're going to be able to put up some yards and points. It's just, can they get some timely stops to allow the other side of the ball to kind of just dictate this game?
Yeah, so I think it kind of bodes well to what we've seen the Packers, Aaron Rodgers lately. It's you're going to get their knockout punches. Can you sustain those knockout punches and not let that just stack on top of each other? And then you're looking around like, what the hell is going wrong? Essentially, it's look at the Ravens games. Like they got punched in the mouth by the Ravens, and that piled up so many times. Niners were eventually out of that game in the third quarter.
Right.
Now the Packers are nowhere near let's say the Ravens and what the Ravens were playing at that time. It's completely two different teams in that aspect. I think what the Packers do well is they take advantage of that second level of the defense. And you look back at that Cowboys game, and the second level of the defense for the Cowboys, it's you have safeties playing inside linebacker,
That's
and
right.
the Packers were able to expose that completely because yes, you do have the more athleticism with the safety playing inside linebacker, but it's like some of the greatest inside linebackers in the game are smartest people on the field. Look at Fred
Yeah,
Warner. Look at Luke Kuechly when he was inside linebacker. Patrick Willis, Brian Urlacher, Fred or Ray Lewis. Like these are some of the smartest people on the field. So it's like with these guys, you're taking the traditional high safety, putting them down, and it's completely different. You're messing with their eyes. That's what you see why the 49ers took advantage of the Cowboys this season because they have nobody there. And you look at Green Bay, their most efficient run plays is like they're going up the middle and their inside linebacker is over here outside the tackle box. It happened
that's
multiple
right.
times in that game.
That's
So
right.
I think same thing with the passing game. They took advantage by messing with the mind of the Cowboys inside linebackers. That's where I think it's going to be different with the 49ers.
I
Um,
agree.
Dre Greenlaw is a little more undisciplined, but he's a smart player. Uh, Fred Warner is probably what top three intelligent players in the NFL. So as far as on the defensive side of the ball,
That's right.
I think that's going to be a completely different game for the 49ers and kind of just go straight into my X factor. It's going to be I'm sorry to, take the hanging fruit off the tree, but it's Fred Warner. Um, the Dallas Cowboys have no Fred Warner on their defense, so that's why it's a completely different matchup. And I'm not even talking skill set of Fred Warner. I'm talking about intelligence of Fred Warner in that middle of the defense. The Cowboys had nobody on that defense that, bar none, is levels with Fred Warner intelligence wise. And I think that's going to bode well for the 49ers. And that's ultimately going to be the X factor for the 49ers containing that Green Bay Packers offense. Because if you could stop them in the run, they do like to pass. They're about only middle of the pack, maybe a little less than middle of the pack in running attempts are the Packers. So if you turn them into a pass happy offense, which they have done multiple times this season, to where they just go so much into the pass, they lose focus on the run. We've seen it with Aaron Rodgers in the past, that's kind of like what they do over there. They lose focus in the run, and they're 0-4 when they have less than 90 rushing yards in a game. So I think that could be very similar to what we see here. So sorry, Fred Warner. I'm sorry. It's so obvious. I don't want to be that guy, but I'm going to be that guy when I have to be that guy.
That's a good stat there about just Packers rushing stats. My X factor is going to be Eric Armstead, and I was looking at some efficiency stats yesterday. Eric Armstead, the most valuable defender on the field for the 49ers defense this season. When he's been on the field, they are plus 0.14 EPA, which means they're a really good defense. And when he's off the field, I think they were like minus 0.02, which is like above average, but not what they should be. And this season, especially, he's been so valuable against the run. He's been one of their better pass rushers. And I pointed this out yesterday. There was a 4 week stretch when the 49ers had Chase Young, Eric Armstead, and Ambry Thomas instead of Isaiah Oliver at corner. And that was right after the bye, week 10 till the Eagles game, week 13. And the 49ers played like a top five defense, top three against the pass, top 10 against the run. And I think they find that level of play again in the playoffs here because that's kind of the situation. They're healthy again, they're rested, coming off of a bye, fresh legs. And I think Eric Armstead is kind of the catalyst to that. He probably isn't the flashiest guy on that defensive line just because you have Nick Bosa and Javon Hargrave, but makes all the dirty plays happen. And I think the key to this game is going to be stopping Aaron Jones and limiting that run game. That's what Nick Bosa said yesterday to the media, and that starts with 91 up front. So I think he's the X factor.
I love that efficiency stat. That's wow. Yeah, he's been fantastic. So happy to have him back. Um, now that we're in the playoffs in this situation, we're like, okay, yeah, we're glad he rested it versus the
Yeah,
Ravens.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
we're glad. Now that we know the outcome being 1 seed, things like that.
He's just
Um,
magically healthy come playoff time.
yeah, same thing with McCaffrey now.
Yeah,
Um, so those are our X factors as far as 49ers defense goes. And what do you know? Right up the middle.
yeah.
So with the 49ers offense, they've been averaging about 28 points a game. So that's
About yeah,
four touchdowns per game that they've
about
been averaging. And you would imagine each 100 yards is one touchdown. 49ers, I don't see them getting less than 400 yards as an offense versus the Packers defense. So you would imagine they're going to be around that 28-point mark. But what do you see when you're looking at the 49ers offense versus this Packers defense, young Packers defense?
I think this is where the game's decided. A lot of people have been talking about, especially from the Packers standpoint, is that the 49ers haven't seen someone like Jordan Love. Jordan Love's been playing really well. This Matt LaFleur offense is high flying. They're going to come in here and put up a bunch of points. And I don't necessarily disagree. I think they've been playing well on that side of the ball. That's what we kind of said to start the show. But I think the difference here is that the 49ers offense is going to have its way with this Packers defense. Mike McCarthy this past week, just for some reason, abandoned the run game. They haven't had much of a run game with Tony Pollard this season. They started to drop Dak Prescott back a little bit more. They didn't take advantage of the middle of the field. They just kind of played into the Packers' defensive strategy. Dak threw a couple of picks, and the game just got out of hand. And that's not Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan's ethos is he's going to run the ball down your throat. They're going to put the quarterback under center. They are going to play action you to death. They're going to relentlessly hunt mismatches on the field. He's going to put what I call the Shanoscope on whoever the target is on defense, whoever your weakest defender is. He knows the defensive rules better than your coordinator. He's going to isolate that defender in coverage, and they're just going to hunt and hunt and hunt. And that's what they've done all season long. And the Packers don't have the defensive personnel or the scheme, frankly, to be able to stop this 49ers offense for 4 quarters. And I think that's ultimately it. And I pointed this out yesterday. When you have elite linebackers against this 49ers offense, you have a shot of slowing them down, right? We saw the Ravens do that. We saw the Browns
Yep.
do that earlier this season. That's the Packers' weak link. Devondre Campbell, Quay Walker, those guys are bottom half in PFF coverage grade. They're not good against the run. And honestly, I thought the Cowboys just didn't take advantage of that. And guess what the 49ers are going to do? They're going to split Kittle out. They're going to split CMC out. They're going to make sure to try to get one of these receivers on one of these linebackers. And they're just going to spread you out in that situation. And, if you decide to go light, they're going to run it down your throat. And I don't think there's a better offensive play caller in the NFL at taking advantage of these mismatches. And I just don't think the Packers have the defensive personnel. I mean, outside of Jair Alexander and Darnell Savage, there's no one in the secondary that really should worry you. I mean, these guys were, guarding Brandon Cooks and whoever last week. They're gonna be
Yeah.
they're gonna be defending Debo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk this week, and that's just a whole other monster, right?
Mm-hmm.
49ers offense has been preparing now for about 6 days, and I think they've got a good game plan put together here. Brock Purdy's rested. This offense is rested. I think they're going to roll. I think they're going to put up a lot of points, and I think that's ultimately going to be the difference in this game.
So one thing I noticed last week is Jair's Alexander, his ankle is for sure messing with him because despite what
Hasn't
CD
practiced
Lamb
this week.
hasn't practiced this week, despite what CD Lamb has done in the season, like just a hair below being the leading receiver in the NFL, he did not travel. And that's going to be great for the 49ers because guess what? He's not going to travel with Brandon Ayuk. And as you were talking about, the game for me to watch is the Buccaneers versus the Packers. That middle of the field is wide open when Baker Mayfield went in there in Lambeau on the road. Wasn't too long ago, week 15. Like, I'm not bringing up
Yeah.
a week 5 game. This was
No,
week
this was like a month
15.
ago.
Yeah. They went down there and middle of the field, wide open. Devondre Campbell was on the field. Quay Walker was on the field. Neither of those guys missed. And second level throws just boom, boom, boom over these guys' heads, wide open. And I think that's why you look at who had a big game. It was Chris Godwin, who's more of the route runner, possession receiver for
Yep.
the Tampa Bay Buccaneers rather than Mike Evans being the home run threat. And so that tells me this is setting up to be a big Brandon Ayuk game. Let me see. I'm going to pull up to see what Godwin's numbers actually were for that game.
That's such a good point because the play caller for the Buccaneers, Dave Canales, right? He came from Seattle. He runs this Shanahan type system now down in Tampa Bay.
Mhm.
And that I'm sure Kyle Shanahan and his offensive staff cross watched that film because they run a lot of the same concepts and same principles that the Niners do.
Yeah. So as I saw just watching that game, I just kept seeing Godwin, 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 middle of the field. I didn't even look at his numbers. I just looked at his numbers now. 10 receptions, 155 yards.
I mean, Baker threw for like 400 or something in that game, right? They put up like 35, I think, or
Baker
350. He
threw
had
for 381, four
381.
touchdowns.
Yeah,
381, four touchdowns.
on
Final
the
score
road
was
in Lambeau.
34-20 in Lambeau.
In Lambeau. Yeah.
So
And yeah,
that's the same thing with Baker. You give Baker the middle of the field, he's going to do those type of things. We just saw that against the Eagles. So it's like this Green Bay Packers defense is going to give Brock Purdy the middle field. Alexander, he's not traveling Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk, he's going to go off. He's not my X factor just because I know that's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. So like Brandon Ayuk's going to eat this game and that's where the 49ers are going to win on offense.
agreed.
Middle
Agreed.
of the field in the passing game.
100%.
And in order to make that happen, my X factor is going to be Colton McKivitz.
Wow.
Um,
Real
and
curveball there.
yeah, so Colton McKivitz is my X factor because if he can hold up the pressure, whether it's stunts or just a straight bull rush, doesn't matter. If he could give Brock Purdy time, which he's been fine this year, I Colton McKivitz, and not just that, we've seen the Packers in the playoffs before. Now it's been some time ago, but you could run either side of the ball against this Packers defense. They are 23rd in rushing yards per attempt this season, so they're definitely
Bottom
below
10.
average. Yeah, bottom 10 in defending the run as far as a per average. It's
Yeah.
they give up 4.4 yards per carry. I mean, CMC could definitely get 5. That's not a stretch. Eli Mitchell can definitely get 5. That's not a stretch. Hell, Jordan Mason could go get 5. That's not even a stretch. But for the 49ers, McKivitz is my X factor because we know you're getting 5 with Trent Williams on the left side. And that's something they missed a little bit. They haven't missed McGlinchey at all this season. But if there's one aspect of his game that they wish they had come this playoffs, is the efficiency of running the football
Really good
on the
point.
right side of the offensive
Good
line.
point.
So that's why McKivitz is my X factor.
I like
Be a
that.
hell of a pass blocker.
I like
Be a dog in the run game.
that. I like that. I've been thinking about this for a while. My X factor is going to be George Kittle.
Ooh,
And I say that because, like you mentioned, the Packers can't defend the middle of the field. They're 27th in DVOA defending the middle of the field. That's worse than the Seahawks. That's worse than the Eagles. That's worse than the Cowboys. Guess what the 49ers did to those teams? They hung 42, 42. And I think they averaged like 34 against those three teams this season in 4 different games. And guess who showed up in all those games? George Kittle. Because guess
yeah,
what? It's Kittle over the middle. And I think they're going to split him out. He's going to get matched up against one of these linebackers, Campbell or Quay Walker. And guess what Brock Purdy does? He gets the ball out quick, and Kittle's going to win against these linebackers. And he's going to run after the catch. And I just think that's where the 49ers are going to eat. They're going to eat over the middle of the field. So Brandon Ayuk, I see him having a big game. I can see George Kittle having a big game. Christian McCaffrey, who Packers are not good at defending running backs in the pass game. I think they're 26th in DVOA. I could see him having a bunch of balls out of the backfield. And George Kittle this season has been has been more explosive at home than on the road. I think he's averaging like 70 yards receiving at home. And so I can see him having a big game, being the X factor. And if you remember 2 years ago when the 49ers played in Lambeau in that playoff game, 49ers needed a third down late in that game. And guess what they did? They lined up George Kittle against Devondre Campbell one-on-one. He beat him over the middle. And that game, it was Jimmy Garoppolo delivering the ball for a first down. And this time it'll be Brock Purdy. And I think it's going to be a big game for 85. I think that's the X factor in this game.
Yeah, and I love that because I look back at the box score. Kate Otten had 2 receptions, only 2 receptions, 44 yards. That's 22 yards per reception. And I believe it should have been more. It should have been about 60 yards for Kate Otten and a touchdown, but I believe he had one dropped that game. That was on his 2 hands,
Off
just
his
boom.
hands, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like I love that. I love that George Kittle up the middle pick. Because it's gonna be there. You guys are gonna watch the game and be like, oh my gosh, like these guys were spitting. Like it was
Absolutely.
actually there. And I don't see it as, one of those games where it's just like magically it's not there. Not against this 49ers offense. Not with Debo Samuel. Not with Brandon Ayuk. Not with George Kittle. You could even throw McCaffrey on a Texas route, choice route, whatever it
Yeah.
is, and he's going to be there because Rashad White had a ton of receiving that game as well. So it's like pick your poison. Juwan Jennings, he does a lot of his work on the outside breaking routes, but like it's just too much for them to flip that narrative in one game.
I 1000% agree. And kind of as we move into our game picks here, I don't know if you saw the clip that kind of went viral. It was the Packers players walking back to the locker room after beating the Cowboys. Devondre Campbell, the guy that we've kind of been picking on here, he was walking back with Matt LaFleur and he was like, God, am I tired right now? And guess what? They're playing on a short week and they've been playing playoff games for a month and they're going to have to
Yeah.
fly out here on a short week. I saw Jair Alexander hasn't been practicing. Matt LaFleur said, really, their practices this week have all been walkthroughs, which means they're really not hitting. They've been just kind of walking through half speed in sneakers as the 49ers have been just kind of rested. They really haven't played a meaningful game in a couple weeks now. They've had some hard practices. I think they've got the pads on today as we record on Thursday. They've had some extra time to game plan. They're going to be at home. I saw Nick Wagner said that the crowd's expected to be like 95% 49ers fans. It's going to be rocking at Levi's for a night game here, especially with the expectations that they have. And I think ultimately this comes down to Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan, and the 49ers offense. I just think Packers defense, Joe Barry, I just don't think they have a shot in hell in slowing these guys down. This isn't the Ravens. This isn't the Browns who have the personnel and the scheme to be able to kind of combat this 49ers offense. I just think the Niners are going to be able to do whatever they want. I think they're going to put up a lot of points. I think on the flip side, the Packers will be able to move the ball a little bit too. I think it'll be a high scoring affair, right? The over under, I think, is like 51, which is the highest of all the games this weekend. I got the 49ers winning, man. They're 9.5 point favorites. They're at home. They're rested. They're motivated. They're getting Eric Armstead back. The band's back together. You can say whatever you want. And I think they're going to win like 37-23 would be my guess.
37-23. 2 touchdown game.
High scoring. Niners have not. Everyone the Niners have had this year have been by double digits, except for one, which was against the Rams when Sean McVay kicked a useless field goal at the end of the game to cover to make it a 7 point game. So really, every game they've truly won this season has been by double digits. And when they smell blood in the water, they step on your throat. And I think this team's going to come out, make a little bit of a statement Saturday night in front of everybody that don't forget about us. We're the best team in the NFC, and we're coming.
Love it. I love it. And I love that you brought up the short week. Last time the Packers played on a short week, they played Monday night in New York. They went back home and played Sunday versus the Buccaneers, the game I keep going back to.
Yeah.
They lost to the Buccaneers 34-20. That was at home. You're traveling to Dallas. You're going back home. You're traveling to Santa Clara. That's 3 stops you're making. And then you're going to have to make one more because you're going back to Green Bay, then you're going to Cancun. So I got the 49ers here in this one. It's going to be 35-18.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah, it's going to be like 35-10. The Packers going to get a touchdown. They're going to go for 2. I got 35-18. Like I said, I believe the 49ers, they're getting 4 touchdowns. Like that's a constant for me. They're getting
I agree.
400. You get 400 yards on offense. You're getting 4 touchdowns. But because of what, like Devontae Campbell, he's tired, middle of the field, open. I think they have a 5 touchdown game, and Packers, 49ers, like when they come off these buys when the band's back together with Eric Armstead, Javon Hargrave,
Juwan
uh,
Jennings.
Juwan Jennings. Like I find it very hard for a Packers team in a must-win game, only scoring 17 points on the Bears. I find it very hard for them to score more than that after they just gave their blood, sweat, and tears in Dallas. I think it's
Absolutely.
35-18. That's what I'm going to go ahead and call this game. Um, 3 straight years NFC Championship. Give me one. Give me
Just
one
give me
NFC
one.
Championship
Give
win.
me
Like,
one.
come on. Let's
Give
go
me
ahead and
one.
do it.
And this Packers team is going to be a problem for years to come.
Oh
Jordan
yeah.
Love looks sweet. They got a bunch of young guys. Their coach
Yep.
is awesome. Like this isn't that a shot at the Packers? Their
Mm-mm.
time just isn't right now. They're going to be like a year away from being a year away. But this 49ers team is in the middle of their window. Their roster's loaded. They know what's at stake. And they're at home. And I think they come out hair on fire, setting the tone, letting Green Bay know like this ain't the Dallas Cowboys this week. The San Francisco 49ers. We have a standard. Play physical. We set the tone. We set the intensity, and they're going to come out. And I think they're going to beat the piss out of the Packers.
Yeah, I think so too. I think this game probably is going to get decided in probably in the third quarter. I think that's where you're going to see the 49ers pull away here in the third quarter. I think, first quarter is always tough because how many possessions are you truly going to get in the first
True.
quarter? A lot of it's scripted. Both teams could go on 7-minute drives in the first quarter.
Agreed.
So that's why I think this game is in the 49ers are just going to
They're going
unhitch
to
the
pull away.
trailer. They're going to unhitch the trailer, which is the Packers, and they're just going to pull
They're just going to
away.
pull away. Agreed.
Yep.
Agreed.
So that's what we got. Not homers, just what we see. If you want to call it homer,
Sure.
that's fine. I'll take it. But that's just what we see. We see the 49ers, and that's anybody that talks football. That's what they're going to see as well. So, Akash, where can everybody follow you at?
At Twitter at AKASHANAV. Follow me there. It's where all these stats, content, analysis always is. And yeah, where can we find you, Leo?
So you can find me, same thing, Twitter, Leo Luna 93, or you could just go ahead and follow the program on Instagram, Bay Area Sports Digest.
Hell yeah.
So definitely, we have more exciting news coming up beyond this game because we expect to talk about a future game. So we'll definitely stay tuned, like, subscribe, leave your comment for predictions below.